Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome to my comparison of the Stampin' Up! Blendabilities markers, the alcohol markers, with Copic sketch markers. I have two sets of these Blendabilities. The first is Coastal Cabana and the second is Rich Razzleberry, and I went ahead and pulled two sets of markers, 3 markers each, that I can use to sort of compare in the same color family. The Stampin' Up! Blendabilities come in packages of 3, a light, a medium, and a dark, and so you don't have to worry about figuring out which colors to buy. They have all 3 in the same package. You cannot buy these markers separately, so you must buy them together. A set of 3 is $11.95, so they're about $4 a marker. Now, Copics will come in big packages, small packages. You can buy them every which way, pretty much. I buy mine individually, and I usually get them at Dick Blick, where they are $5.25 a marker. So they're definitely on the more expensive side. As far as ink and longevity goes, the Stampin' Up! Markers are not refillable. So if one runs out, you have to buy a package of 3. You can't just replace the one that the ink ran out of. Copics, on the other hand, these are sketch markers. You can buy the refills for, I buy them at Dick Blick for $6.30. This is what they look like. The refills fill a sketch marker about 8 to 10 times. So I was actually wondering, I asked Copic, I actually emailed them, how much ink comes with a marker. And they told me there's about 3 to 3.5 cc's in each marker. And then the refill will fill it 8 to 10 times. Now, I figured the only way to really compare how long these will last is to know how much ink is in them. And so I asked my sister, who's a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, to email Stampin' Up! And ask them how much ink comes in one of these markers, just so we could compare. And the response was, and I'll quote this from an email, it says, "I'm sorry, but we don't disclose the volume of ink in our markers." So we're not going to have that information. Another thing I want to mention is that Copic never retires their colors, so they're around for a lifetime. Stampin' Up! Does retire their colors, so this is more of a disposable marker, if you will, because once you use it, you have to trash it, and Stampin' Up! Could retire the color at any time, and then they wouldn't be selling it anymore. So anyway, just another thing to consider. Okay, so let's take a little closer look at these markers. Now, the sketch markers are oval. They don't roll around the table, which is great. But the Stampin' Up! Markers are also, they don't roll around the table. They're rectangular. They both have the same, almost exact same brush tip on one side. So let me take these off to compare. And one thing I do want to mention is that these caps are much harder to get off. You really have to use a little muscle. And then they're harder to get on. You have to actually put them on exactly straight or they don't go on. So I would recommend leaving the caps off for the duration of your coloring and then put them all back on, because if you're going on and off, it can get a little bit annoying. Okay, so here are the two brush tips. They're very, very similar. They color pretty much the same. And obviously you know that the Copic, the nib can come out and be replaced, whereas the Stampin' Up! One is permanent. So this side is pretty much the same. Put these back on. The other side, on the other hand, the Copic has a chisel tip, as you can see here, and the Stampin' Up! Marker has a fine tip. So it's more of like a writing, tip. It's similar. I would compare it to the original Copic marker, the tip on the original marker. It just kind of writes a fine line, like if you were, writing, handwriting. So anyway, that's the tip. So let's go ahead and do some coloring. Okay, so I've stamped this image multiple times. It's actually Penny Black's Blooming Garden, this flower stamp, because it's got a lot of open space for coloring. I stamped it with some Memento Tuxedo Black ink, which Stampin' Up! Is selling now because it's a really good ink for Copic because it won't bleed. And now I've labeled this the Rich Razzleberry, so I'm going to be coloring this flower with my Rich Razzleberry markers. And then I should probably reverse this. I'll be coloring this flower with my Copic markers, and I've got V12, V15, and V17. So I am going to start, oh, by the way, I have, let me show you, done a lot of practicing with these, all the different ways of coloring, dark first, light first, all over, you know, partial, all these different ways of coloring. So just so you know, I've practiced this to figure out what the best way is to use these markers. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the darkest color and I'm going to put it in the dark areas, which is kind of underneath the flower and over to the side here. And you can actually see it's got some dark areas. Let's just go ahead and follow these. Okay. And then I'm going to take my medium. I'm going to zoom this in. And so I'm going to actually take the medium and I'm going to color on top of a little bit the dark. Now, when you look at this, when I'm doing it, it looks like it's the same color, doesn't it? And then I kind of go over the dark a little bit. It does not look like there's that much variation in color. And it seems that these markers from Stampin' Up! Take longer to dry, and as they dry, they change color. So I'm going to go in here with the lightest, kind of blend it in. And then right where the edges meet, I just kind of do a little bit more circular motion. Okay, let me see if I can lift this up a little bit. The one thing that I am not that happy with these rich raspberry markers is that the lightest color is not light enough, in my opinion. I think it needs to be a little lighter. But, you know, it does, as it dries, it's going to lighten up a little bit. So we're going to let that dry for a minute. And I am noticing that there is some bleeding going on right here on the edge. Like I have a little bit too much saturation, like there's too much ink maybe coming out of the pen. All right, let's go over here, and I'm going to use my 3 Copic markers, and I'm going to use the same technique I used over here. So I'm going to start with my darkest, and I'm going to kind of start at the bottom, move up a little bit on these dark lines. And the nice thing is I can choose, there's so many different V's. This is the violet category, and so I can choose lighter, darker. There's lots of options. Okay, so here's my medium, it's a V15, and I'm going to come in and blend it just like I did with the Stampin' Up! One, just around the edges, and work my way around. Okay, and then I'm going to take my lightest, and I'm going to fill in the rest. Notice that this lighter one is much lighter than the lightest rich raspberry. Okay, so now I'm going to go back, actually with the Copics I like to go back sometimes with the darkest and just add a little bit more. I'm fearful that if I add more dark here, it would be too dark, although it might actually be better. Let's do that. Because there's not as much variation over here as there is in my Copic side. So yeah, that is a little bit better actually. Come up a little bit. So, see, I'm having a hard time saying I didn't put this on straight. I gotta put it on exactly straight. There, okay. All right, so here's what results. It's a different color, so you have to keep that in mind. This is more purple. This is more like a burgundy. So let me go ahead and finish up coloring the whole flower so we can really take a look. Okay, so here are the two flowers. Now, you really do have to keep in mind that these are two different colors. And I really do wish this was a little bit lighter, but I think all in all, it looks really good. I think you can see that it's darker in some areas, lighter in some areas. It blended very, very well. And in my practicing with all my different things that I used here, I did find that the blending actually was very, very nice. So I do like the blending of the Stampin' markers. And Copic's this is just a little bit more vibrant of a color. So, you know, it's a little hard to compare, but I do like both of them. Okay, so let's flip this around and let me label these. All right, so I'm going to use the same exact technique, 3 markers on this side, and I will tell you that the lightest one, the Coastal Cabana, is actually pretty light. It's nice. So I'm going to go ahead and speed this up. I'm going to be using the same technique. Okay, so after coloring these first petals, and actually part of this is me coloring out of the line here, but I don't know if you could see, but it is bleeding over the black. The black itself is not bleeding, but I did go over the line just a little bit right there, but I don't think I went over the line all this around here. And the Copic is all in the line here, so that's a little worrisome. Now I'm going to flip this over a little bit, and the raspberry did do it just a little bit, and I did notice that when I first laid the color down here. It is coming out this way a little bit, and it could be maybe the markers are newer and they have more ink, and so it's just a little bit more, I don't know, too much ink, I don't know. Okay, so I did notice that the Coastal Cabana looks a little bit different, like the colors don't exactly match up, like one's more of a grayish, one's more of a greenish, and then one's more of a bluish. I don't know, maybe that's just me. But there is more variation in color. So my markers are different colors here than they are here, but I think that this is my selection of color. You have to keep that in mind. So there's a lighter light, a darker dark, and these three all blend a little bit better together. So let's go ahead and color the rest of the flower. I want to stop here for a second and show you that this has dried and this is brand new. So you can see as the Stampin' markers dry, they get lighter. Okay. Okay, So we can compare these two colors. I was definitely more careful about not putting too much ink on the edge here, and it did make a difference. So there's not as much ink, but it is actually still coming over the line just a little bit. And I don't have that problem at all on this one, so I'm wondering, it can't really be my technique because it would be consistent across these. So anyway, the lighter is lighter. The lightest is lighter than the lightest of the rich raspberry. So there is more variation in color in this color set in the Coastal Cabana. But you know, there's ultimate variation in the color with my Copics because I can choose whatever color I want, and there's so many different options. So, but I do have to say that the blending definitely works really well. I like the blending of the Stampin' Up. So I also wanted to compare this to Stampin' Up paper. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and come right back. All right, so here is my Coastal Cabana colored on Stampin' Up paper. And I'm very surprised at the difference. The colors are much brighter on the Stampin' Up paper. They're much more muted on the Neenah paper. And I did not have any problems with the colors bleeding outside the black image like I had with the Neenah. However, I think that the colors themselves blended better on the Neenah paper than they did on the Stampin' Up paper. So I guess it's a give and take. I like the more blended look here, but I do like the colors that are a little bit more vibrant here. And of course you don't have the bleeding. So anyway, there you have it. And then this here is the Copics on the Neenah. So in summary, I think the blendabilities are really nice. I think they give you a great blend. Then the great part about them is that they match the inks and the papers, and it makes it really simple for you to match colors, and you don't have to decide on what colors to purchase because they come 3 in a pack. But then again, they also only come 3 in a pack. There is no refills, and so you have limited colors and you can't buy them individually. And I kind of look at the Stampin' Up markers more of as a disposable marker. The Copics, on the other hand, they cost a little bit more, but they're more of a lifetime purchase. The colors never retire, and there's refills that'll last you a long time. So I think in summary, if you're looking for something fun that you think, that you want to be more economical about, and you think the novelty might wear off, and you're not that concerned about it, then you might want to consider buying the markers, buying the Stampin' Up Blendabilities. But if you're looking for more of a long-term purchase, you think you're going to be using them for years and years to come, and you really want to invest your money wisely, then you might want to consider going the Copic route. Personally, I really like these markers. I can see myself using them since I've already bought them. But I probably will continue to invest in Copics because I've already invested so much into the Copics. So anyway, there you have it. If you have your own experience with comparing these markers, please make a comment and share it with the rest of us. Thanks for watching.